We've really been getting into our XC tech recently, and we're lucky enough to be at the very first round of the 2018 UCI XCO World Cup, which was held in Stellenbosch, South Africa. Whilst there, I was checking out a lot of the pro bikes and their setups, and it became really apparent that not everyone runs the same sort of setup. So I want to start looking at who's running dropper posts, who's running hardtails, who's running big wheels, small wheels, and just generally seeing what seems to be best for cross-country racing. So the first thing I just want to spell out, in case you don't know this, is the fundamental difference between cross-country bikes and downhill bikes. And that is because they are the two types of bikes covered in UCI mountain bike racing. So on the screen at the moment is a downhill bike. Now, a downhill bike, the sole job of this bike is to get down a mountain as fast as possible. Now, to achieve that, they have up to about 200 millimeters of suspension travel front and rear, really aggressively treaded tyres, often with different rubber compounds and different casings. And they typically have very slack geometry, and that is to bring the handling back into relation when they're pointed down something very steep and very technical. Now, although downhill bikes have very different suspension platforms, the overall shape of a downhill bike is fairly similar. They're all quite long, they're all very slack, and they're all very aggressive. And really, you can't do anything on them except race them downhill. In the world of cross-country mountain bike racing, there's very much an emphasis on the bike being as light and efficient as possible. And that's because not only did I have to descend technical terrain, but I have to climb up them and along terrain at immense speed. Now, some riders seem willing to sacrifice out-and-out control for weight saving because perhaps they're a stronger rider and they're going to make up more time on those sections, whereas other riders rely on more control, enhancing things like wider handlebars, shorter stems and dropper posts to help them negotiate that technical and tricky terrain. Now, from the outside, you might think, why don't they all have dropper posts? Well, the simple fact is they weigh more and they don't fit all bikes. But this is something we're going to have a look at. But if you just look on the screen at the moment, you'll see the XC bike, and then look again in a sec and you'll see an XC bike shape versus a downhill bike shape. Downhill bikes, long, low, slack, aggressive, can only really be used to go down a hill, and then the cross-country bike with the high saddle, efficient pedalling platform as it were, and it's good for all sorts of mountain biking. So that is the fundamental difference between the two. Okay, so obviously there's only been one XCO World Cup race so far, so this is just a speculation on what people have been running. Bear in mind that over the next coming races, people might change from a hardtail to a full suspension or vice versa. A lot of the riders did indicate to us that they would change bike settings dependent on the course. So first up, I want to have a look at wheel size. Now, in the world of cross country, it's all about going fast and covering ground as efficiently as possible. And arguably, the 29-inch wheel is king as far as that is concerned. They've certainly mastered wheel strength with low weight and the right tyres these days. Now, almost all of the riders were running 29-inch wheels, but there are exceptions to the rule. Now, Emily Batty, she was running not only a full suspension bike, but she was running 27.5-inch wheels, and pretty much was one of the only women doing so. And you could put this down to the fact that she's 5'2", but also her teammate, Anton Cooper, who rode in the elite race, he's about the same height as her and he chose to run 29-inch wheels. So it just goes to show there is still a preference. And I know for a fact that if Emily really thought that the 29-inch wheel was going to be a lot faster for her, she would ride that. She's a competitive racer. So the 27.5 obviously works for her style of riding. And when we were watching her riding through the rough sections like pickup sticks, she could really throw her bike around and comfortably negotiate that. Whereas I could say that a lot of the other riders, male and female, were definitely struggling in areas where Emily wasn't. And so again with the wheels, so tubeless tyres seem to be the rigor for everyone now. I don't think you're going to find many riders opting to run inner tubes. Tubeless tyres work well enough, they seal up small thorns and small holes while racers are doing their thing, so why would they want the chance of getting a flat that's going to stop them completing that race? And even whilst there, some of the Specialised mechanics showed us some of the new prototype solutions for the tyre sealing that they're developing specifically for cross-country racing in hot conditions. So it does go to show that 29-inch wheels on the most part are here to stay as far as XC racing goes. They're definitely going to cover ground a bit quicker, and they also have that advantage of lowering the bottom bracket in relation to the wheel axles, which gives the riders a lot more stability. So although most riders seem to be on the 29-inch wheels, there was a bit more variety when it comes to who's running a hardtail and who's running a dropper post. So on the screen now is a chart that's going to show you the top 10 finishers in that first XCO race at Stellenbosch. This is the women's class. If you look at the chart, you'll see it shows you who's riding a hardtail and who's running a dropper post. Now, as you see, all of the top 5, so all of the podium were running dropper posts, and actually 8 out of those 10 riders were all running dropper posts. So 2 of them, Catherine Pendrell and Sabine Spitz, were not running dropper posts. They were both on full suspension bikes as well. So I wonder if there's any correlation there, something maybe to consider. Now in the race, it was exceptionally dusty and slippy. Now, although there were 3 sort of major technical sections, the pickup stick section with the logs, the rough sort of rock garden section, and that gully, the wine barrel. Now, whilst they did demand riders to be technically proficient and really good at riding, it was actually the conditions, I thought, on the rest of the track that made racing look quite hard. Now, Anneke Langvad and Pauline Ferrand-Prévot both ran dropper posts and are both running full suspension bikes. And they pretty much had their own race off the front. And I could see them both actively using dropper post a lot because the bikes were sliding around. And if you have a look at that shot of Anneke on screen now, she's just coming out of a turn and she was just correcting the bike after sliding. Now, she was really making use of keeping her body weight low and keeping stable on that bike. And you can see that Pauline is doing exactly the same, keeping very neutral on the bike. So there's no question that dropper posts were definitely aiding both of those riders. But like I said, there were other riders that were not, so outside of that top 10, granted, that were not using dropper posts. I'll use Emily Batty as the example because technically she's so proficient, such a good rider, and she looked really comfortable everywhere on the course. But unfortunately, she was just outside that top 10, so let's just focus on those that were in there. So in the top 5, you've got 2 hardtails within there. So you've got Maja Wachowska and you've got Anne Tauber. Now, Anne Tauber was running a dropper post, and so was Maja. So there are some other factors to consider as well. Okay, so granted, 8 out of those 10 women are running dropper posts, but there are some riders that aren't actually able to run a dropper post on a frame. Now, Irina Kalentieva, her bike, her full suspension Scott bike, was so small that she can't actually get a dropper post in there because of the kink in the seat tube, whereas a hardtail, she does run a dropper post. So it does seem that women are slightly disadvantaged, or smaller men as well, slightly disadvantaged when it comes to frame design as to whether it allows a dropper post or not. So it is interesting to find that most of those elite women are running dropper posts now, but of course there are some anomalies in there that simply physically cannot get dropper posts in a frame. Are you a small rider? Do you perhaps suffer with trying to get dropper post in your bike? I'd love to know. Let us know in those comments below. And also let us know what you think about the women here, judging by that list, that are running the ratio of them running dropper post to those running full suspension bikes. Food for thought. Let us know in the comments. Now in the men's race, it was a little bit different. So if you look on the screen now, there's the top 10 right there with the same stats up as the women's you just saw a minute ago. Now in the men's race, only 3 of the top 10 used dropper posts. 2 of those did make it up onto the podium, so that's out of the 5 positions. And interestingly, only 1 rider in the top 10 was running a hardtail. So it certainly seems set to me that full suspension bikes are, well, certainly in the Stellenbosch race, were the fastest way to cover that terrain safely and make sure you can retain some sort of race with the people you're against. So if you look at that top 5 there, you'll see that 2 of those racers were using dropper posts. So Maxime Moreau in 3rd place there, who gave it was a valiant fight really to try and claw back that race because he did most of the race out on his own there. So I think by all accounts he did a lot of the hard work there. And Teuton Karode, who was running the BMC, so he was running a dropper post as well. But interestingly, all top 5 racers were all on full suspension bikes. Now something I did notice with the men's race was the pace when it came to technical obstacles. Now the pace didn't really seem to slow down at all. I was really quite surprised at the speed of the riders now, especially through that rock section. That's really quite a gnarly section when you look at that in the flesh. There didn't seem to be any sort of sign of any of them slowing down or taking easier option lines there. Now, in the men's racing, when racing is so close, it seems to me that any sort of marginal gain you could get would be a clear advantage in order to try and space yourself from the next rider. Now, Maxime, I was watching him when he's putting his dropper post down. He looks so comfortable, but at the same time, Sam Gaze that is, he's so fast and didn't really seem to sort of struggle by having his saddle up at full height. And Nino, well, I mean, he just showed us how classy he is as a rider by, on the very last descent, nearly managing to squeeze past Sam Gaze there by taking the harder line as well. Again, another rider not using a dropper post. I wonder if he'd been any faster if he was running a dropper post. Could he have got past Sam on that, arguably that last part where he could have passed him before the finishing arena? I mean, I think that's where that was the last ditch chance to win that race. It wasn't on the sprint. I don't think anyone would have caught Sam on that sprint. He was so strong. You know, people see the finishing line and they say what they will, but I think that was the last opportunity before the arena, because you could hold someone off through there, as Sam did very well. So what do you guys think? Do you think the race could have been different, perhaps, if Sam or Nino were running dropper posts? I'd like to know what people think, because of course this stuff is going to go around in circles as the race season goes on. You're going to see some people running them, some people not. And of course you are going to see some riders switching to hardtails for certain races. I'd like to know what you guys think about cross-country racing. I'd like to know what you think about the use of dropper posts in there, or the lack of dropper posts. Do you guys use dropper posts? If you do, let us know what you think about riding without one. Let's get this conversation going. Something that's become very apparent to me in looking at this race was the fit of some of the riders' bikes. Now, in particular, I'm going to use Sam Gaze and Nino Schurter here as the examples, because it became very apparent watching them how differently they'd ride bike, but how similar actually their bikes kind of are at a glance. Now, there's a particular section of the race, I think it was on the penultimate or maybe even the last lap, where Sam's leading Nino up the climb, and you can see the bikes just chasing each other. Now look at Nino's bike. Like, at a glance it looks like Nino's bike is nearly as long, or if not longer, than Sam's bike, and it really sort of made me look at the setup. Now prior to that, I'd done a bike check on Sam's bike. I found out that Sam, he's about 6'2". Now he's running the size large, so you can have a look at the geometry chart on the screen at the moment, and I've got the rough stats of their bikes down. So he's running a size large Specialized Epic. Nino is 5'7", and he's running a size medium Scott Spark. Now, okay, so there's a size between them there, but really, I'm surprised that Sam is running the size large there, because the size large comes with a 90mm stem as standard, and he's running a massive 130mm stem with that enormous negative rise on it to keep the front end on the ground and keep his body nice and low for climbing. You also notice, if you look at the bike on screen, how far back he runs his saddle on the rails. Now, I do know from speaking to the mechanics that he prefers this, obviously because he's riding it, and it works really well for him to be able to get that massive leg power down that he's got. Now, I don't doubt this, and ultimately at the end of the day it's always about the riders. No matter what the setup is, if they can ride it, they're going to win on it, and as Sam proved, he's an excellent rider and a phenomenal racer. However, it still does make me question this particular bike setup a bit, because he's a big guy at 6'2", running that size large, and it seemed from what his mechanic told me that he prefers it over the XL because the head tube on the XL is quite tall, and therefore he wouldn't be able to get the stem and his handlebars in that position that he likes. Now, whilst I fully understand that, and it might be because he wants to get off and train on his road bike since it's a similar position, so he's used to the same thing, I think that you wouldn't need to get your handlebars that low if he moved up to an XL, and nor would he need to put his saddle so far back either. His body would be generally a bit more neutral on the bike, and therefore under climbing and descending he's not going to overly weight or unweight one of those two wheels. That is totally just my feeling on it, and it clearly works for Sam. I was watching him shred out on the course and it didn't seem to be any sort of sign of it slowing him down. But look at his position on the bike compared to Nino's. Nino looks really natural on that bike. It looks like it fits him so well, and it might explain why Nino is able to attack some of that really gnarlier stuff, perhaps a little bit more than Sam was in this case, although it certainly didn't help him because Sam had the edge for that whole race. What do you guys think about bike sizing? Have you got any theories as to why those cross-country pros are choosing to run bikes with long stems and such low bars? Obviously, there's a lot of speculation out there that suggests that it could be for improved climbing, but perhaps if the bikes were longer, they wouldn't need to have that feature on there. Okay, so there we go. I've had a little look at what the sort of pro riders in the top 10, men and women, are running. Hardtails, are they running dropper posts? What sort of tech that they're using to get those race results? If you guys want to know anything tech about XC, let us know in the comments. Are there pro bikes you might want to see over the coming months? When we go to next events, we'll try and get those. And of course, as the season unfolds, we want to be talking more about cross country and involving ourselves more in the discipline of cross country. So let's get that XC conversation going in the comments below. For a couple more useful videos, click down here if you want to see the 2018 XC World Cup preview video, and click over here if you want to see the XC Tech from Stellenbosch, of which we did recently. As always, click on that globe to subscribe, and if you like this video or you love XC, give us a thumbs up.